my channel. So I'm carrying on reviewing Empire of Normality now. We are getting to the end. This is a very, very long, I know this is a very long drawn out series of videos. I can't do them all in one video because I don't have enough memory. And also, I don't know about you, but when I'm watching videos, I quite like watching them in shorter instalments because I don't always have the concentration span to listen to something like, you know, really, really, really long. But it's just the way it is. I don't have enough memory on my camera anyway to do long videos, so it has to all be in sections, so apologies if that is a bit confusing for you. So we're carrying on from where I left off last time. Now, the next bit, so in my previous video I was mentioning Judy Singer, the sociologist Judy Singer, who was very influential in bringing neurodiversity to the sort of mainstream consciousness, although neurodiversity movement itself had preceded Singer. She only kind of like advertised it, helped advertise it and get it out there into a wider domain, but it had actually preceded her. So Robert Chapman now mentions a number of problems with Singer's approach. The first problem that he identifies is that Judy Singer limited her analysis to so-called high-functioning autism. That's quite a controversial label nowadays. There's been a lot of push against the term high-functioning, and I actually kind of agree with that, actually. I don't really think functioning labels are the best way of kind of determining someone's impairment. It can be quite deceptive. Often functioning is how someone appears to other people. So if, like me, you come across as very highly verbal, being able to speak fluently, and you come across, at least on first impressions, as being quite quote-unquote normal, because normal is often kind of determined based upon how someone speaks, isn't it? That's highly deceptive. I can't work. I have never had a relationship. I don't really have any friends. I rely on my dad for pretty much everything. Is that high functioning? So functioning is very deceptive. There could be someone else who doesn't speak as fluently as I am, who stutters, maybe speaks in a monotone, no inflection, who just isn't very fluent, and has an obvious kind of verbal disability, and someone might judge them to be low functioning, but actually that person might be more functional than me. They might actually have a job, they might have a relationship, they might have be able to do more things, and so on. It's very deceptive. I'm not implying, by the way, that just because someone has a job or has a relationship that they're high functioning either. Of course, someone could be in a relationship and actually be quite low functioning, because there are so many different metrics of functioning. It's very, very complex. I was just using those examples because, it's very simplistic, I admit, and it's very complex. So someone could be in work, and that might mean that they have met, if you like, that aspect of functioning in terms of what society judges to be functional, but they might only be able to have that job because I don't know, because they're receiving a lot of support, or they've got a really supportive employer, or family has helped them, and so on. There might be a lot of luck involved. It might just be that they're very lucky and found a very supportive employer, and yet their home life might be a complete shambles. Likewise, someone else might have managed to find a relationship, and yet they still can't work, and they can't look after themselves, or their partner might be their full-time carer. So again, we shouldn't judge just based upon one or two metrics of so-called functioning. But the point I wanted to make, though, is that just based upon my own personal experience, is that people can sometimes see me as being more high-functioning than I am, or how I experience myself to be, because of the way I talk and maybe come across, but I'm hardly, by most definitions, high functioning, because literally I've never been able to work in my whole life. certainly, you know, I might be relatively more functioning than someone, say, who can't do YouTube videos, I don't know, and someone who needs 24/7 supervision. You know, it's all relative at the end of the day, but I wouldn't describe myself as high functioning. So yeah, so these functioning terms are always quite problematic, and I think there are just better ways of assessing someone's degree of impairment with avoiding these rather binary terms, which are always very overly simplistic, and also bring to mind a kind of Victorian attitude of ranking people, like in asylums and stuff, against what the outside observer perceives to be normal functioning. But anyway, that's just a little digression. But yeah, so Singer does limit her analysis to this rather controversial term, high functioning autism. I think meaning here those who previously would have been described as having Asperger's, but of course Asperger's itself doesn't necessarily mean high functioning, because you can have Asperger's and be very severely impacted after all. People often think Asperger's is like a code for high functioning. It really isn't. It's all relative. It's relatively high functioning compared to someone who can't talk and he needs 24/7 supervision, but it's all relative. You could have Asperger's and still actually be quite impacted in terms of functioning. Yeah, so Singer left those autistics who fall further from the so-called neuronormative standards, backing a medical model. Chapman argues. So Chapman suggests here that this therefore meant that Singer retained traces of a so-called ranking system distinctive of the pathology paradigm, excluding many autistics who might find the neurodiversity approach helpful. Yeah, but as I say, I personally don't find the neurodiversity approach that helpful anyway. As I said in my previous video, I prefer the biopsychosocial approach because part of my impairment is actually explained by the medical model. Like, as I say, the fact that I really struggle and can't really make relationships and have normal friendships and all of that, like, with you know, even if I were to get loads and loads of support, no one's going to magically be able to make me understand friendships, are they? So I see that as very much a personal issue, and it's very deeply ingrained there as an actual innate impairment, and which is part of the reason why I wish I wasn't autistic, but I can't change facts. You know, but I wouldn't choose being autistic because I'd rather I could relate to people normally, because it is a massive handicap that no one can magic away, no matter how much support I have. I'm always going to face this innate isolation, you know, it's very unfortunate. So implying that we've been left behind in a medical model. Now, it is certainly the case that Singer has very much focused on the so-called high-functioning people. It is all this talk about autism being a great difference and everything, and you know, having gifts and strengths, which, as I said in my previous video, actually does remind me quite a lot of the Galtonian paradigm. And here, Chapman actually corroborates that by saying that yes, it does retain traces of that ranking system, but by saying that she leaves those more impaired backing a medical model, as though the medical model itself is necessarily a negative thing, is a bit controversial, and I do feel that the biopsychosocial synthesis can kind of is the best approach. I feel it's the most balanced approach. Anyway, the second point he makes is that Singer's response to the criticisms of the neurodiversity movement that suggest that the approach is at odds with scientific understanding. Promoted in the mainstream of psychiatry. Singer says her concept is only supposed to be an activist concept rather than a scientific one. But, on the other hand, as a contradiction to that, Singer makes a scientific claim that you can generate a testable hypothesis. For example, that neurological diversity is vital for optimal functioning at the group level. while claiming it is not scientific. So she has just made a scientific claim. The claim that neurological diversity is vital for optimal functioning at the group level, which is supposedly testable. But as I said in my previous video, I think that's a eugenics argument, because I don't exist for group benefit. No one exists for the group benefit, their value in and of itself. And I find that quite offensive, even as a suggestion. And that's part of the reason why I can't stand the neurodiversity movement, as I've already said in my other videos. It doesn't appeal to me, it doesn't apply to me, as someone who's certainly not high functioning in terms of what singer means, anyway, at least. I find a medical model a lot more useful, combined with the social model, a bit of both. So yeah, there's a bit of a contradiction there, as I mentioned. So Chapman argues that but when Singer says it's not scientific, she's underselling the scientific legitimacy of the neurodiversity movement, making it seem as if it is closer to mere scientific sounding rhetoric rather than a rigorous theory that has legitimate uses in scientific research. And using neurodiversity concept to change how we approach scientific research, he says, is vital for liberation. Change how we approach scientific research, changing how knowledge has been produced under Galton's paradigm, resulting in a paradigm shift. He talks about liberation, but it does make me wonder to what extent this idea of liberation is dreamed up by academics living cushy lives in their ivory towers, and how much it really is going to help people who actually are very much struggling on the ground. But anyway, we're going to move over to the next video now.